Hello everyone, this is Rakhi Kaushik and today we'll be doing classification of elements part 2. So in this session we'll study the basic properties like atomic size, ionization energy, electron affinity and electronegativity, and we'll try to see how it changes or the general trend goes in S and P block elements, how it changes across the period or as we move down the group. So these are the topics that will be covered like causes of periodicity, atomic size, ionization energy, electron affinity, electronegativity, valency and its trend, anomalous behavior of first element, and diagonal relationship. Now first is what is the causes of periodicity. Now if we see the reoccurrence of a similar properties of elements after certain regular interval when they are arranged in according to the atomic number, it's called as periodicity. So if we see the periodic table, we have arranged all the elements, 118 elements known till now, according to their increasing atomic number. So basically we see how the properties, they repeat itself after a regular interval. And that is called as periodicity. These regular intervals, it can be an interval of 2 or 8 or 8 or 18 or 32. These are called magical numbers. So if you see here, this is the first group elements, that's the alkali metal, lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, with their atomic number and the electronic configuration. So you can see they all have one electron in the outermost shell, that is S. So 2s1, 3s1, 4s1, 5s1. Yeah. So here 2, 3, 4 and 5 are the period number and S1. One here it states the group also. So you can see here they all belong to the same group, that is alkali metal group 1. They have a similar chemical properties. Why? Because they have the same valence electron. They have the same valence electron. So the electron that is present in the last shell is called as the valence electron. So the electron that is present in the valence shell is called as valence electron. So the reason for repetition of the properties is because of same valence electron. Let's see the first property, that is atomic size. Now if we see the atomic size or atomic radius, it is the distance from the center of a nucleus of an atom to the outermost shell of electron. So if I say the structure of atom is like circle, if I represent it by circle like this, so it's the distance from the center of the nucleus to the outermost electron. That is called as atomic radii. But it's not possible to find precisely the radius of atom. Why? Because atom is too small to be isolated. And second, the probability picture of finding an electron in an atom does not have a definite boundary. So the probability of finding an electron is never zero, even at the large distance also. So because of these reasons, the atomic size is usually expressed in terms of different type of radii. Now the first is covalent radii. Now what is a covalent radii? Suppose this is A element B, which are joined by a covalent bond. We know that covalent bond is formed by sharing of electron. So it is, what is a covalent radius? It is the 1/2 of the distance between the center of the nucleus of two, can you see A and B? Two similar atoms bonded by a single covalent bond. So A and B are two similar atoms. They are joined by covalent bond, that is bond formed by sharing of electron, and by single covalent bond, which means they both have contributed one electron. So the distance between the nucleus of these two atoms and half of it is called as covalent radius. Half of it is called as covalent radius. So basically it is the same thing, like the distance from the nucleus to the outermost electron. So covalent radius is distance between A and B and divided by 2. Now if we have to find the ionic the van der Waals radius, okay, same way we can find the ionic radius also. We have an ionic radius also, which is again the same thing, the half of the distance between the two atoms which are joined by ionic bond. Now we know that in ionic bond we have ions. So we have cation and we have anion. Plus ion, that is cation, minus ion, that is anion. So ionic radius, it can also be called as the effective distance from the center of the nucleus of the ion up to which it has its influence. That is called as ionic bond. Same way, if we want to say metallic bond, then it will be the half of the internuclear distance between the two neighboring atoms of a metal in a metallic bond. Atomic radius generally refer to both covalent and metallic bond depending upon whether we are talking about non-metal or metal. This was when we are dealing with the bond between two elements inside a molecule. But when we deal with molecules which are near to each other, then intermolecular forces play a role, like van der Waals forces or hydrogen bonding. Now, van der Waals, like in case of helium, if you see, or the noble gases, if you see, we have a van der Waals force of attraction. So, what is a van der Waals radius? It is one half of the internuclear distance between two adjacent atoms. So, B and C, you can say, these are the two molecules which are near to each other. So, it is half of the internuclear distance between the two adjacent atoms of the same element belonging to two nearest neighboring molecule of the same substance in a solid state. So that is called van der Waals radius. So the molecules which are joined by van der Waals force of attraction, which is a very weak force of attraction, we'll study this in detail in the next chapter. So van der Waals radius is when two molecules are near to each other and the half of distance between them, that gives the van der Waals radius. So you can say the distance between B and C and half of it is the van der Waals radius. Van der Waals radius is more than metallic radius, which is more than the covalent radius. Let's see the general trend in atomic size. Now you can see here in a periodic table, as we move from left to right, or we call it as across the period, the size decreases. Why the size decreases? Because nuclear charge increases. So as we move each step, the number of electron increases by 1 unit, and these electrons are added in the same principal shell. So as a result, the electron cloud is pulled more closer to the nucleus and the atomic size decreases. So you can see here, as we move across the period, since electrons are added in the same shell, so number of protons are increasing, so nuclear charge is increasing, and electrons are adding in the same shell. So because of increase in nuclear charge, the size decreases. But as you see, as we move down the group, the atomic size increases. So it's the same group, group 1, if you can see here, or any group you take. As we move down the group, the size increases. Why? The nuclear charge increases, which is supposed to decrease the size, but electrons are added in the next shell. So since the number of shells are increasing, which overcomes the increase in nuclear charge, and that's the reason the size increases. So since the number of shells increases, the first electron, here the last electron is in the first shell, then this is in the second shell, third shell, fourth shell, fifth shell, sixth shell. So as the number of shells are increasing, so the atomic size increases. Okay, now according to this, can you tell me this periodic table? Tell which element has the highest covalent radius? So you can see here cesium. Cesium has the highest covalent radius. In case of ionic radii, we consider the internuclear distance as the radius of cation and radius of anion. And for noble gases, we consider the van der Waals radii. Now, if we see the cation and the normal ion, suppose lithium, if I say, now lithium after losing one electron become cation. Now, why it become cation? Because in a neutral lithium, the number of proton is equal to number of electron. So it's a neutral atom. So 3 electron, 3 proton, neutral atom. But after losing electron, the number of proton is more. So that's why it gets a positive charge. So it has 3 proton but 2 electrons. So 1 proton is extra, that's why +1 charge. Now, if you see the radius of cation, the number of electron is less, but the nuclear charge remains same. The nuclear charge is same because the number of proton is same. So the effective nuclear charge per electron increases, which pulls the electron close more strongly towards the nucleus, and that's the reason the size decreases. So if I have a cation, the number of electron decreases but number of proton remains same, so nuclear pull or effective nuclear charge increases per electron, so which pulls the outermost electron more strongly, and that's why the size decreases, and that's the reason cations always have smaller size as compared to normal atom. Yes, you can see here Fe plus 2, Fe plus 3. So the more number of electrons it will lose, comparatively more, then more number of protons will be more as compared to electron, so size will decrease. The size of anion is more than the normal atom, neutral atom. So you can see here Cl and Cl minus. Why? Because it will accept one electron. How anion is formed? When it accepts one electron, so now the number of electron is more. Suppose if I take in case of chlorine, there are initially 17 proton and 17 electron. After gaining one electron, the number of electron increases to 18. So the effective nuclear charge per electron decreases, and that's the reason the size increases. The size increases. I hope you're getting it. The next topic is isoelectronic ions. Iso means same, electronic means electron. So the ions which have same number of electrons are called as isoelectronic ions. For example, this is carbon, nitrogen, C minus 4, N minus 3, O minus 2 and F minus. If you see, they all have 10 electrons. They all have 10 electrons, and that's why they're called as isoelectronic ions. Now same way you can see here, you can compare the size also of all of them. And same way Na plus has more radius than Mg plus 2, which has more than Al plus 3. Though they all are isoelectronic, means they all have same number of electron, but the nuclear charge is more in aluminium. So most positive ion is the smallest and most negative ion is the largest. So we can say anions have largest atomic radii than a normal atom, which has more than cation. So can you tell me, out of Br and Br minus, which has larger size? Correct, it's Br minus. Out of O2 minus or F minus, which has larger size? Yes, it's O2 minus. Out of potassium, K and K plus, which has larger size? Yes, it's K. So more the charge on the ion, smaller is the size if it's cation. Now next property is ionization energy. Now what is ionization energy? It is the minimum amount of energy required to remove the loosely bound electron from a ground state gaseous atom. It's very important that it has to be ground state, means the electrons are not excited, and gaseous state because we don't want any other influence. So it is an isolated gaseous atom. We don't want any influence of it. So that's an important word to write when you are defining it. So the amount of energy required. So I'll provide energy to take out the last electron. And that energy is called as the ionization energy or ionization enthalpy. We represent it by delta H. We represent it by delta H like this. Delta I. I means ionization energy and H is the enthalpy. Now this energy, since we require energy, so it is always positive. It is always positive. Endothermic. Now it measures how tightly the electrons are held to the atom, because more the ionization energy, it means they are more tightly held to the nucleus. Now it is the energy associated with the reaction. You can see here the sunlight is falling on it and will remove this last electron, and you can see the whole shell is removed, and it is called ionization energy of an isolated gaseous atom. It's an important word. Now, if you see a metal, if I lose the first electron, we call it as the first ionization energy. Now, from this cation, if I take out one more electron, that is called as second ionization energy. Now, from this cation, if I remove one more electron, that is called as third ionization energy or enthalpy. Always remember, third ionization enthalpy is more than second, which is more than first ionization enthalpy. because after removing a first electron, the atom changes to a monovalent positive ion. You can see it has changed to monovalent positive ions. Now in this ion, the number of electron decreases. So the nuclear charge, or you can say, but the nuclear charge is same. So number of electron is less because it has already lost one electron, but the nuclear charges remain because it's same because the number of protons are same. So the effective nuclear charge increases, effective nuclear charge per electron increases, so it is more difficult to take out the second electron. Same way here, it has already lost 2 electron, nuclear charge is same, so effective nuclear charge per electron increases, so it becomes more difficult to take out one more electron from a positive ion. So that's the reason that the third ionization energy is more, because it is difficult to take out the third electron, then second, then first. Now, what are the factors that affect the ionization energy? First is the atomic size. Now, smaller the size, greater is the ionization energy. So it is inversely proportional. Smaller the size, greater is the ionization energy. Here's the example of lithium and beryllium. The next is effective nuclear charge. Now that is directly proportional. It means greater the charge on the nucleus, greater will be the ionization energy. So more the charge, you can see here +3 +4. So +4 means more nuclear charge, so more will be the ionization energy. Next is the screening effect or shielding effect. Now, if I have a multi-electron atoms, the outermost electrons, they are shielded from the nucleus by the inner electrons. So if I have a, let me tell you first what is the screening effect. So I have a nucleus at the center and these are the electrons. So this is the last electron if I say. Now the inner shells or the electrons in the inner shells, they shield the last electron from the nucleus. So it means now because there is a screening or there is a shielding effect of the inner shells, now this electron is observing less nuclear pull. It's observing less nuclear pull because of the inner shells. So that is called as a screening effect. That is called as screening effect. So more the number of inner shells, lesser is the ionization energy. Why? Because it is experiencing, now the last electron is experiencing less nuclear pull. So it is easy to take that out. So it's easy to take out that last electron. So more the number of inner shells, more is the screening or shielding effect, and lesser is the ionization energy. So it's a combined effect of attractive and repulsive forces between the electron and proton, because these electron and electron, there is a repulsive force and there is a force of attraction between the positive nucleus and the electrons. So effective nuclear charge is basically total nuclear charge minus the screening constant. And this screening constant, it considers the number of inner electrons. So greater the number of inner electrons, more will be the screening effect and lower will be the ionization energy. Next is the penetrating power of the orbital. If you compare the orbitals of same shell I'm talking about. So this is the nucleus, this is the first, this is the second, this is the third. Okay, now if you compare the electrons of the same S, P, D and F subshells, the electrons of same S, P, D and F subshell, the S orbital, because it is spherical and it has more probability of being found near to the nucleus because of its shape. So S orbital, or you can say S subshell, is more penetrating towards the nucleus than P electrons and then D and then F. So more the penetrating power, it means it is found more near to the nucleus. It means more nuclear charge of that electron towards that electron, more force of attraction towards that electron. So more is the ionization energy. So for the same subshell, same shell, S electrons will experience more nuclear pull. So ionization energy will be more. Now next is the complete octet, that is electronic configuration. Now it is observed that certain electronic configuration are more stable and they have a high ionization energy, especially when the shells are filled or half filled, completely filled or half filled. then they don't have a tendency to either lose or gain electron. So they don't have a tendency to lose electron, so it means the ionization energy is high. For example, noble gases, if you see, the configuration is NS2 Np6. So their last shell is complete, so they have a very high ionization energy because they don't want to lose electron. They are already in the stable state. Stable state, inert state, we call it as an octet rule also. Same way, elements like beryllium and magnesium, if you compare, beryllium it is 1s2, 2s2. And magnesium it is 1s2, 2s2, 2p6 and 3s2. So the group second, where s2 is complete, so they have a completely filled orbital and they have a high ionization energy. Same way you can compare nitrogen and phosphorus also. If you see nitrogen and phosphorus, their p subshell is half filled. So nitrogen, if you see, the configuration is 1s2, 2s2, 2p3, and we know that p3 is half filled. P3 is half filled. So half filled means more stable comparatively. More stable means less tendency to lose electrons. So it means it is more stable or it has high ionization energy. So this I am telling you for 2p3 for nitrogen. So it is 1s2, 2s2, and 2p3. So half filled and completely filled shells and subshells are more stable and they have high ionization energy. Now let's see the trends in ionization energy across the period and group. Now if we see across the period, as we move from left to right, the ionization energy increases. Why? Because the nuclear charge increases and the atomic size decreases. So as a result, the electrons are more tightly held to the nucleus, so it's more difficult to take out electrons, so ionization energy increases. Or we can say tendency to give electron decreases. So ionization energy increases as we move across the period. The reason is because of increase in nuclear charge and decrease in atomic size. But there are some irregularities. For example, if we compare group 2 and group 3. Now if you can see here, group 2, it is NS2, while group 3 it is NS2 Np1. So here you can see NS2 it is completely filled. So whenever we have a completely filled shells and subshells, they are more stable. So if I compare now, if I give you a question, if I ask you out of beryllium and boron, which will have less ionization energy. Now beryllium, you can see it is NS2, yes, and boron. So beryllium, if I want to write, it will be 2s2, and boron, it will be 1s2, 2s2, 2p1. So can you tell me which one will be more stable or which one will have high ionization energy? Yes, it's beryllium. Why? Because here you can see the completely filled orbital. The orbital is completely filled, that's why it is difficult to take out electron, whereas here we can take out this one electron easily. So beryllium has higher ionization energy than boron. And p orbital also is less penetrating power than 2s, so it can be easily removed. Same way, if we compare the group 5 and group 6, group 5 you can see it is half filled, Np3. So when we have half 3 orbitals, half filled and completely filled orbitals, they are more stable. So it means Np3 will be more stable than Np4. Can you tell me out of nitrogen and oxygen, which one will have a higher ionization energy? Yes. So you can see here it's difficult to take out electron from nitrogen because it is half filled than oxygen. So it means nitrogen will have higher ionization energy than oxygen. But I'm talking about this as first ionization energy, that is to remove one electron. So first ionization energy of nitrogen will be more than that of oxygen. Now if I remove one electron, then the configuration of N2 plus will be 2p2, and this one will be 2s2, 2p 3. This I am talking about O plus and this I am talking about N plus. After removing one electron, if I want to remove the second electron, that is if I want to find the second ionization energy, can you tell me which one will have higher? Nitrogen or oxygen? Yes, it will be higher for O plus. Why? Because now you can see oxygen is half filled. Oxygen is half filled, 2p3. So it has a half filled p orbital. Now as we move down the group, the ionization energy decreases. Though the shielding effect increases, but the atomic size also increases. So since the number of shell increases, atomic size increases, so the last electron is away from the nucleus, and that's why it's easy to take that out, and that's why the ionization energy decreases, or we can say tendency to lose electron increases. So as we moved on the group, the ionization energy decreases. Why? Because the atomic size increases or the number of shells increases. You can see here the ionization energy of noble gases. They are very high in their group. Why? Because their outer orbital is complete. Their octet is complete. And if you see here, as we move down the group in a noble gases, the ionization energy is decreasing. Why? Because the size is increasing. And you can see here in the same group, the noble gases, they have the highest ionization energy. Why? Because their octet is complete. They have completely filled orbital. So across the period, ionization energy mainly increases with increase in Z. That is the increase in nuclear charge. This is another example. First ionization energy of beryllium is more than lithium, but the second ionization energy of beryllium is less than that of lithium. So you will just answer this based on the configuration. Now the next topic is electron affinity. Now electron gain enthalpy, or called as electron affinity. We also represent it by delta EGH, electron gain enthalpy or electron affinity. It is the amount of energy associated when an electron is added to an isolated gaseous atom. Isolated gaseous atom. It means there is no other force. It should be in the gaseous state and should be in the ground state. So the amount of energy change that happens when electron is added. You know, ionization energy, we were removing electron, but here we are adding electron. So that is called as electron gain enthalpy. Generally, it's a tendency to gain electron. When we say greater the tendency to gain electron, more energy is released. So delta Eg is more negative. Delta G is more negative. When the second electron is added to a uninegative ion, I means it has already gained one electron and got a charge of -1, it experiences a repulsive force and the energy has to be supplied to overcome that repulsive force. So usually the second electron gain enthalpy is positive or less electronegative. So you can see here I have an element, it accepts an electron. Now when it accepts an electron, energy is released, that is negative, delta H, exothermic. Energy is released and it changes to anion. It changes to anion. So that's called electron gain enthalpy or first electron gain enthalpy. Now the same anion, if I want to add one more electron to it, there is an electron repulsion. So I need to supply the energy, and that is called as second electron gain enthalpy, and it is usually positive. Why? Because we are supplying energy. Okay, so electron affinity, it is the energy change when electron adds to a gaseous ground state atom. It can be positive or it can be negative. So when energy is released, it is negative. When it is required, it is positive. Especially for the noble gases. Noble gases, they have a positive electron gain enthalpy. Why? Because they are already in the stable state. So they don't want to gain electron. So we need energy to put electron in it, and that's why the electron gain enthalpy for noble gas is positive. For noble gases, The halogens, if you see, halogens, they have a highly negative electron gain enthalpy. Why? Because they have a great tendency to accept that one electron to change into a noble gas or stable gas configuration. Suppose if I have this noble gas, I accept this electron. It has 7 electrons in the outermost shell and it needs only 1 electron to complete the octet. So it will very readily accept that electron and energy will be released and its octet is complete. So this should be in isolated gaseous atom. It's a very important word. Isolated gaseous atom should be written in the definition. The factors that affect the electron affinity. Yes, first is the electronic configuration. If that element has a stable electronic configuration, it doesn't want to gain electron. So electron affinity will be positive. But if it's in need of electron, then electron gain enthalpy will be negative. Let's see the trend of electron affinity. As we move across the period or along the period, the nuclear charge increases. Since the nuclear charge increases, so tendency to attract electron increases, so electron gain enthalpy become more negative as we move from left to right in a periodic table. But in elements like group 2, group 15 and group 18, they show exceptional behavior. Why? Because they have either the half filled or completely filled or inert gas configuration. You can see here the first group elements, lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, they have less electron affinity, but the group 2, you can see here the electron gain enthalpy become positive because the configuration become 2s2 stable, and then it increases. And you can see here for the halogens, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, they have a highest electron gain enthalpy because they have a great tendency to accept one electron to change to noble gas configuration. And noble gas configuration, I mean the noble gases, they have a positive electron gain enthalpy, while halogens, they have a negative electron gain enthalpy. Positive means that they don't want to gain electron. Now you can see here, this is an exception. Please make sure you remember this. It's a out of way exception that electron affinity of chlorine is more than fluorine. Generally what we say is as we move down the group, the atomic size increases. So the attraction for the electron decreases and electron gain enthalpy become less negative. It become less negative, or you can say electron affinity decreases. Okay, but here it's an exception that chlorine, though it is below fluorine in a group, but still it has more electron affinity than fluorine. The reason is because fluorine is very small in size. So when it accepts an electron, there is an electron-electron repulsion. Because of very small size of fluorine, there is an electron-electron repulsion with the incoming electron. And that's the reason chlorine has high electron affinity as compared to fluorine. It's an exception and it generally comes in exam. Second thing, the exception is that group 2, you can see here they have almost zero electron affinity. The reason is because their configuration is s2, ns2. So since the orbital is completely filled, so they don't have a tendency to accept electron. The third is fifth A, group 5. Group 5 means nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, bismuth. They have very low value of electron affinity. Why? Because they have half-filled configuration. They have half-filled configuration, so half-filled configuration are more stable, so they have less tendency to gain electron. Now more the electron affinity, more greater is the oxidizing power. Now oxidizing power is the power to oxidize other and itself get reduced, and reduction is gain of electron. It means if element has a high electron affinity, it means it has a greater tendency to accept an electron. And if it is accepting an electron, it means it is oxidizing the other thing. So it means they will have a more oxidizing power. Like ionization energy, we also have a second and third electron affinity, but adding a second electron to already a negative ion is difficult because of Coulombic repulsion. So energy needs to be supplied to force a second electron into the anion. Next is electronegativity. Now electronegativity, it is a relative tendency to attract the shared pair of electron towards itself. So remember there is a difference. Here it is attracting, but it is attracting the shared pair of electron. It means when we make a covalent bond, we know that covalent bond is formed by sharing of electron. Suppose if I take H and Cl or H and H. Now one electron is shared by each hydrogen to make a one single bond. Now, when a compound is covalently bonded, at that time the tendency to attract this shared pair of electron is called as electronegativity. For example, if I take hydrogen and chlorine, so they both have shared one electron to make this bond. So this is of hydrogen and this green one is for chlorine. So they both contributed one electron. They shared the electron and they made this single bond. But chlorine has more tendency to attract the electron. So this shared pair of electron is not at the center. It is more towards of chlorine. So it is more towards chlorine. So you can say this electron is like this. So it is more towards of chlorine than hydrogen. And this tendency to attract this shared pair of electron towards itself is called as electronegativity. So because of this electronegativity, this chlorine will have a delta negative charge and this hydrogen will have a delta positive charge. So it develops a polarity. Now the factors that affect the electronegativity, first is the atomic size. Greater the atomic size, less is the electronegativity. It's a property of an atom in the bonded state. So it has to make a covalent bond or it should have a shared pair of electron. Its electronegativity is higher for a nearly filled configuration, means when they want one electron to complete the outermost shell or they need only two electrons to complete the outermost shell. So their tendency to attract this electron to complete the octet is more. So oxygen has electronegativity of 3.5 and fluorine has 4. Now if we see the variation in period, as we move from left to right, the nuclear charge increases and atomic radius decreases, isn't it? So electronegativity increases. So smaller the atoms or smaller atoms, they have more electronegativities, and in a periodic table fluorine is the most electronegative element. Why? Because it is at the top right. And as we move down the group, the size increases, so electronegativity decreases. So atomic radii increases and the electronegativity decreases. Generally, the oxides of metal or metal oxides, they show basic character if the difference in electronegativity of oxygen and the element is very high. So metals, they make basic oxide and non-metals, they make acidic oxide. Now next is valency. Now valency, it's a tendency to lose or gain electron. The number of electron present in the last shell or valence shell is called as the valence electron. Metals generally, they have a tendency to lose electrons, so their valency, or we call it as electrovalency, is plus. So group 1 has tendency to lose 1 electron, so their electrovalency is +1. Group 2 has +2. Group 3 has +3. This way it goes. And the non-metals, they have a tendency to gain electrons, so their electrovalency is negative. For example, group 14, they need only 3 electrons to complete the octet, so their electrovalency is -3, like nitrogen -3. Group 6 or 16, it is -2. Group 17, it is -1, and noble gases, it is 0. And all the elements in the same group, they have the same valency. Why? Because they have the same number of valence electrons. So if you see here lithium, if you see lithium, it has 1 valence electron. So either it can lose that 1 electron or it can gain 7. Losing 1 is easy than gaining 7. So it prefers to lose 1 electron. So its valency is 1. So the entire group 1 has valency of 1. So we write it as Li plus 1. Li plus 1 or just plus. Because 1 we can ignore writing. Same way, group 2, the valency is +2. Group 3, the valency is +3. Valency of S block element is same as that the group number. For example, group 2, we have calcium, magnesium, beryllium, strontium, barium. They all have valency of 2 or electrovalency of +2. Potassium, which is in group 1, has a valency of +1. So lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, they all have +1 because they are in group 1. Valency of p block elements, it is equal to the number of electrons in the valence shell. For example, aluminum, it has 3 electrons, so it will be 3. This is for group 3 only. But group 3 onwards, or group 13 onwards, it is 8 minus the number of valence electron. For example, if I want to calculate for group 5, that is nitrogen family, group 5 means 5 valence electron, so it will be, for example, for nitrogen, it's in group 5. So it will be 8 minus 5, that is 3. So valency will be 3 or electrovalency will be minus 3. Why? Because it has 5 valence electrons. So it can either lose 5 electrons or it can gain 3 to complete the octet. So it prefers to gain 3 rather than losing 5. Same way for oxygen family, it is 2. That is group 16. Group 17 has minus 1 because they have a tendency to gain 1 electron to complete the octet. Valency of T and F block is very variable. It means that they show variable valency. For example, iron, it is ferrous and ferric. When it is plus 2, we call it as ferrous. When it is plus 3, we call it as ferric. Same way, copper, cuprous, cupric. They show multiple valency. Depending upon their group number, they can show the oxidation state up to 7 also. So these are the valencies of group, S block element, group 1, group 2, and P block element. Group 3 to group 17. Group 18, they have a 0 valency because they don't want to neither lose or gain electron. So these are the valencies across the period. You can see 1, 2, 3, then 4, and then 3, 2, 1, and 0 for the noble gases. This is how it changes across the period. Next is trend in metallic character or non-metallic character. Now, the metals, that is the left hand side of a periodic table, they have a tendency to lose electron, so they are electropositive and they are more metallic. Metallic character decreases across the period. It changes from metals to metalloids to non-metal, and metallic character increases down the group while the non-metallic character decreases from top to bottom or down the group. Why the metallic character increases down the group? Because the size increases, so it is easy to take out electron. So they become more electropositive, so metallic character increases. Next is the reactivity. Now, elements that are present on extreme left, that is group 1, or extreme right, that is group 17, they are highly reactive. Group 1 is highly reactive metal and group 17 are highly reactive non-metal. Why? Because to complete the octet, group 1 readily want to lose 1 electron while group 17 readily want to gain 1 electron. So they are most reactive. And if you see the nature of oxide, then metal oxides are basic in nature, non-metal oxides are acidic in nature. And at the center we have aluminium, arsenic, which are amphoteric. While we have few neutral oxides like carbon monoxide, nitrogen monoxide, and N2O, dinitrogen oxide, which are neutral. Generally, the first element of each group, they show anomalous behavior. Anomalous means different behavior. They behave differently as compared to rest of the members of the same group. The reason is because the first group, generally the elements, they are smaller in size. They have a high ionization energy. The d orbitals are absent. If you observe the periodic table, the d orbitals comes after in the fourth group, or in the fourth period, sorry. So in the fourth period, they add on. So the d orbitals are absent in that. They have a large charge to radius ratio and they are highly electronegative. These are the reasons that first member of each group show anomalous behavior or different behavior. And if you see the behavior, example of anomalous behavior of first element of the group are, for example, carbon, that is in group 14. If you see, it makes multiple bond. It makes p-pi bond, doesn't make p-pi-d-pi bond. Nitrogen does not form NCl5, but phosphorus it makes. Boron can form B4 minus, while aluminium of the same group, they make AlF6. Why it can't expand its octet? Because of absence of d orbital, absence of empty d orbitals or d orbitals. Next is the diagonal relationship. Now, behavior of lithium is similar to that of magnesium, and beryllium is more similar to aluminium. This similarity is called as diagonal relationship when the element of second group resemble the element of third group, which is diagonal to it. That is called as the diagonal relationship. And the reason for diagonal relationship is because they have similar size, they have similar ionization energy, and they have similar electron affinity. It is just like a game, when you hop. So we know that I'm here, I move one step, I become little smaller because size decreases as we move from left to right. I move down, my size increases, and I move from here to here, my size decreases. So it's just like, moving one step right and then one step left, or one right, one down, or you can say one down, one right, comes to the same. So it means their sizes are same. It increases, and it decreases. So the size become same, so similar in size, and same way in all the trends, even ionization and electron affinity, if you see the trends, so their trends become similar. They become similar in size, ionization energy, and electron affinity, and that's why they show similar property, and this is called diagonal relationship. This is called diagonal relationship. As we move down the group, the solubility of carbonates, bicarbonates, hydroxides, and sulfate also increases. Sulfate also increases. So this is the summary of the journal trend. If you see, easy to remember is that most of the things increases except the atomic radii, which decreases. Otherwise, electron affinity, ionization energy, electron negativity, they all three increases as we move across the period, and it decreases as we move down the group. With that, you can add non-metallic character, acidity of oxide, nuclear charge, electron affinity, ionization energy, electronegativity, all these things increases across the period. Only the atomic radii decreases. Now you have a periodic table. A very quick questions to you. Tell me the element which has the highest negative electron gain enthalpy. Pause. Yes, it's chlorine. The element which has highest electronegativity in the periodic table. Yes, it's fluorine. Element with highest ionization energy. Yes, it's helium. The element with lowest ionization energy. Yes, it's cesium. The element with lowest density among metals. Yes, it's lithium. I hope this session helped you. Thank you so much for watching and have a nice day.